Today we review Gessou Dangun Racer Onsoku Buster Dangun Tama on the Game Boy Color. This game released 2001 in Japan was developed by Imagineer, the same developer who developed SpaceNet on the Game Boy Color, which I liked. So let's see how this game is. Gessou Dangun Racer Onsoku Buster Dangun Tama, what a title, is a racing RPG game in which you buy and upgrade your vehicle. The races themselves are not directly played. You use abilities in certain moments to get an advantage in the race and overtake the others. The game is looking great. The game has a manga anime style and is doing that very good. The music is fine and the game even starts with a cutscene. During the races you can see different scenes based on the environment you're currently in. Sadly the scenes during the race are repeated quickly and the constant use of the abilities from yourself and the other racers are a bit annoying. Besides the races, the game uses an easy presentation. You travel to different locations via menus and the dialogues are just the sprites of the characters talking in front of the background of the location. Still the sprites and the backgrounds are looking great. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. Gameplay wise, on the other hand, I was less impressed. The focus is on improving your vehicle and skills to be faster in the races. It really is an RPG with a racing theme and not a racing game. The problem is that the races are quite boring. They take long and your possibilities of taking influence, at least in the beginning of the game, are very limited. So the only thing you can do besides scrolling through menus and buying parts is watching the races and doing an ability here and there. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. It is a great looking RPG that replaces fights with races that take a bit too long to be really fun. I give the game 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Ultimate Surfing, on Japan known as Naminori Yaru on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Act Japan and released 2001 everywhere. Ultimate Surfing is about surfing. You can choose one of 6 different surfers, all with their own stats, and play in 2 different modes. A Grand Prix mode, in which you need to get to the end of levels while keeping the most points. You start with 10,000 and they go backwards. And Free Play, in which you try to make as many points as you can before you fall off your board. The game is looking good. The waves look cool and the surfers have cute sprites. The different surfers all have their own sprite. There are not so much differences between them, but I'm still happy that they put the effort to make them unique. The levels all look a bit too similar. There's a huge wave that you surf and that takes up most of the level. The presentation of the level vary in their color palettes, the sky and the debris that is swimming around. Their differences are fine. The music is good, it sounds really Ultimate Surfer-like. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is good too. You race around the waves and you can do different tricks or jumps. Whenever you hit something, you fall off your surfboard and need to paddle again and get back to the waves. Between the different courses in the Grand Prix, you can play some bonus minigames like throwing a frisbee. While the gameplay works good and is fun for a little moment, it stops being fun quickly. There's a bit variation in the levels, like the waves can go higher and lower quickly, or there's more trash swimming around the water. But that is not enough variation to keep you playing. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. It is a cute game that is fun for a moment, but not for very long. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today review Ochaken no Bouken Jima, Honwaka Yume no Island on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by MTO and released 2005 exclusively in Japan. It is a children's platformer game which you play a dog and a cat, help the other dogs and cats to get balloons and reach the end of the level. The game has a presentation that is greatly fitting to its gameplay and target audience. The game uses colorful backgrounds and big sprites and it looks like a book for children. Everything is fitting nicely together. The dogs and cats are very cute and even the menus have little details, like that the animals in the not selected menu points are sleeping. The music is fitting to that idea too. While I like the general child book look of the game, the levels could have been a bit more detailed and the sprites of the characters are missing some personality. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is exactly what you expect when you see a game like this. It is an easy platformer. You run around and talk to dogs and cats to be able to finish the level. The platformer parts are easy and the goal is normally very clear. The only interesting feature is the ability to change between the dog and the cat. The dog can stay in the air and float a bit and the cat can do a double jump and reach higher places. Not a groundbreaking feature, but more than the minimum. Additionally, you can color the cat and dog in any way you want. That's nice. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I will not blame the game for its easy difficulty and lack of features. The target audience for the game was, I assume, quite young. So it is fitting, but it's still not very interesting playing the game today. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Top Spin 2 on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Magic Pockets and released 2006 in North America and the PAL regions. It is a tennis game. You can play matches or career mode in which you play multiple tournaments all over the world while gaining points that you can put in different stats. The game is looking okay. The sprites of the characters are not very varied, but they look fine. You can even create your own sprite, which is selecting the colors of the clothes and hair and the serving style, but still better than nothing. The court is looking a bit boring. It is just a picture with no animations at all and no audience. The animations of the sprites in the ball are sometimes not in the right place, and in that case the ball can teleport a bit. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The controls were a bit weird at first. I needed a moment to understand what is going on. You can hold the buttons for what kind of move you want to do, and if you're standing in the correct position, the game kind of automatically does it. It's a bit hard to describe, but especially in the beginning, playing the game feels a bit weird. Sometimes stuff happens automatically, and sometimes it doesn't, and you don't really know why. It feels different than in Mario Tennis, for example. I like the Mario Tennis version more, to be honest. This one feels a bit weird even after I understood what is going on. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think it is an okay tennis game, but there are better ones on the GBA. For a bit more arcade-like tennis games, you have Mario Tennis, and I'm sure you will also find a more realistic one that is better somewhere. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we reviewed Chibi Maruko-Chan, Go Chounai Minna de Game Dayo on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Epoch and released 2001 exclusively in Japan. It is based on the manga series Chibi Maruko-Chan. The game is a bored Mario Party-like game, just without the minigames or decisions to make. It is very similar to the Odarumaru game that we reviewed on the channel, just in worse. The presentation of the game is a bit disappointing. The game uses a typical manga anime look, which looks like the original manga series. That is good, but it feels like they didn't put much effort into it. The most dialogue is just happening in text box in front of empty backgrounds, and not many things are animated. Compared to the Odarumaru game with a similar idea, the presentation of this game here sucks a lot. The music is okay and the images that exist are fine, but too many scenes are just very empty. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is moving around a board and see what happens. It is quite boring because there are not many decisions you can do. Sometimes you can decide in what direction you want to go, but most of the times you can just see what happens. I guess for fans of the manga the dialogues might be interesting, but sadly they are presented in such a lifeless way that I cannot imagine anyone having fun with that. It gives the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game mixes boring gameplay with a boring presentation. Perfect in a way, just not to play it. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Samurai Kid on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Biox and released 2001 exclusively in Japan. In this review you see a language patched version. The patch was made by Mark Marx, Pro State Punch and Flying Climber. The link is in the description. In Samurai Kid you play a samurai that is the kid of the king. So you play the prince of the kingdom. Sadly the kingdom got attacked by the Demon King and 1000 soldiers. After that he built 10 castles in the land and it's your job to defeat the bosses in the castles and get your kingdom back. The story is not much used besides the start cutscene and has zero relevance to the game. It is a platformer puzzler game in which you use your 3 different weapons, a gourd that can turn opponents into stones, a sword that can destroy stones, and a fan that can provoke enemies to follow you to solve puzzles. The game looks really good, the sprites of the characters look good and the enemies are varied and cute looking. Every level has its own setting and with that its own kind of background music, variation of enemies and theme for background and foreground objects. The game is using a lot of different scenarios like village, ghost house and jungle to keep every level fresh. The little animation for changing a room is a bit annoying, but besides that the presentation is great. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is great too. The game has a good level of complexity in its puzzles. It always starts slow to explain some mechanics and types of puzzles, and after that it is getting more and more complicated as the level progresses until the level ends in a boss fight. The ability to turn your enemies into stones is the main mechanic, and most puzzles consist of getting that block to certain spaces, which can be very tricky. I really liked it's a challenge and the levels have a good pace. I give the gameplay 4.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a great puzzler and kind of a hidden gem on the Game Boy Color. Thanks to the English patch, it is easy to play for the Western audience as well. Great game. I give the game overall 4.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Koinu-Chan no Hajimete no Ospano Koino no Kokoro Ikusei game on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by TDK Mediactive and released 2003 exclusively in Japan. It is a virtual pet kind of game in which you take care of a dog. The game looks cute, everything has a chibi look to it. For the dog that works quite fine. The humans on the other hand have giant heads and look weird. That cannot be healthy. There are different areas you can let your dog play in, like your garden or a playground. That gives the game some variety presentation-wise. The music is relaxing and fitting. I like that you can see a dog run around and do things. Sounds like a normal thing for such a game, but as we have seen from Paws and Claws Best Friends Dogs and Cats, review 140, there can be a virtual pet game without that. Even releasing 4 years later. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is exactly what you would expect. You can see a pet running around and doing things, feed it, pet it and let it play with toys. Additionally, you can wander around the city and visit different places like the animal shop or locations to let your dog play. I have not much more to say to the gameplay. It is a typical virtual pet gameplay. Not bad, but nothing special. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is an average virtual pet game. It looks cute but has nothing to really make it stand out. I don't think the game is worth playing nowadays. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Mario Kart Super Circuit, or in Japan known as Mario Kart Advance. This game was developed by Intelligent System and released 2001 everywhere. It is a Mario Kart game, so it is an arcade racer in which you use mainly drifting and items to get ahead and win the race. There are the typical Mario Kart modes, like Grand Prix in which you can play multiple races in a row to collect points, time trials in which you try to get through the courses in the least time, and a battle mode in which you try to defeat your opponents with items. The game looks fine. I like the sprites of the racers and the overall look of the racing tracks. The background images look nice and is very colorful. The music is really good too, very Mario Kart-like. So I think the presentation is good, but also not more. It really is a very early Game Boy Advance game and it shows. Especially when doing a curve or drifting, the camera changes a bit too quickly. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. I love Mario Kart, the franchise. Mario Kart Super Circuit on the other hand, I didn't love. The gameplay is closer to the Super Nintendo version than the later versions, and I didn't like that so much too. I found it very hard to get into the racing, especially the drifting felt weird to me. Maybe if I would play it more I would get better at it, but it was not fun, so I don't think I will. It gives the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It hurts me to be so critical to a beloved classic, but playing it today is really hard and I need to be honest, I had not much fun with it. It gives the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Sanrio Carnival 2 on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Charactersoft and released 1993 exclusively in Japan. It is a minigame collection of 2 minigames, based on the Hello Kitty franchise. The first of the 2 games is a Tetris kind of game, which you punch different colored and textured blocks to make rows and columns of at least 3 same blocks. And the second game is a typical block shifting game. The presentation is basic. I think the games are presented in a fine way. It is easy to follow what is going on in the minigames and there are cute characters at the border of the playing field. The background music is okay. So the presentation is not bad, but not much more than the absolute minimum that is needed for the games. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is the same as the presentation. Extremely basic. It works, it is fun, but it is the absolute minimum. Especially because there are just 2 minigames. That is not many minigames. There are different difficulty levels of them, but yeah, that's it. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a fun minigame for a moment, but not more. That is not enough to play the game nowadays. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today review Pachiokun Puzzle Castle on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Marionette and released 1994 exclusively in Japan. It is a Tetris or more Puyo Puyo kind of game. The game looks okay, but it really has no outstanding features presentation wise. The music is okay. That they use faces as blocks is a bit weird, but it is working and it is easy to see the difference between the blocks. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is Puyo Puyo. Not much differences. Nothing that makes it stand out as its own brand or game. You make rows and columns of the different faces and then they pop and you get points. If you have 2 times the same face over and under another one, this face can change to the other faces, making it one group. Yet it's not original nor innovative, but it is fine. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is an okay game, but there are better games like it. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today review NBA All-Star Challenge on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Beam Software and released 1991 in North America and the PAL regions. It's a basketball game which you play 1v1 with real-life basketball players against others. There are different modes you can play, like a 1v1 duel, horse or a 4v4 tournament. In the 4v4 tournament there are always just 2 players playing a 1v1 against each other in a tournament tree. The game is a typical kind of early Game Boy game. In the game the background cannot move, because you both play on the same basket and there is no camera movement needed for that. The only animated things besides the player and the ball are the clocks in the background, showing the remaining time. The player sprites look okay, but are not very detailed and don't have much differences between them. The menus are easy and the music too. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is... well, it works. You run around, you try to throw the ball in, and most of the time it actually works. Defending can be a bit confusing, because it is hard to understand where you, the enemy and the ball are right now, but it works fine. The problem is, there's not much to do. You can only run around a bit and try to throw or dunk. It is not very interesting and feels like a minigame. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is an okay minigame, at best. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today review Sakura Momoko no Ukiuki Carnival on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Indie Zeros and released 2002 exclusively in Japan. The carnival is coming to town. What a joyful event. Sadly, it comes just to town if you work hard for it, by giving flyers to everyone you see. This game is a children RPG in which you run around and do mostly fetch quests for various NPCs. The game is looking great. The sprites are cute and have a nice style to them. The overworld characters are human people and monster people that look mainly like humanoid animals, but in a charming way. The overworld is looking friendly and colorful. Everything has a childlike innocence to it. The main character is doing various animations when talking, for example, and there's a little fairy thing following you around and helping you out. It actually looked so innocent that I always thought the game's just hiding a more sinister side and soon everything would go bad. But no, it is just innocent and for children. For the menus, the game is using an internet kind of look with emails or messages and fake websites. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. Gameplay wise, there's not much variation. You run around, you talk to the NPCs and give them flyers. From time to time you have to do a fetch quest for them, but that is about it. I didn't notice any minigames or anything interesting. Running around, talking and exploring the fake internet. The game is also cutting you off at every bridge if you're not supposed to go there yet, making the game very linear. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a boring fetch quest simulator with a lot of dialogue, but no action. At least it looks good. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today review Quest for Camelot on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Titus Interactive and released 1998 in North America and 1999 in the PAL regions. The game is based on the Warner Bros. Movie's Quest for Camelot from 1998. In this, clearly by Zelda-inspired action-adventure game, you play Kylie and you protect the kingdom from the evil Sir Rubber. I have never watched the movie, never even heard of it before looking up the game, so I am missing the nostalgia here. The game is clearly inspired by the Zelda franchise and is going in a similar direction like Link's Awakening or Season of Oracle or Ages. The problem is just that Quest for Camelot is worse in every aspect. It starts with the start cutscene, which is a wall of text, and after that a picture ripped from the movie, I guess. After that a wall of text again, and so on. That looked cheap already, and that feeling continues in-game. The sprites are okay, but not more. The overall does look fine, it's colorful, but also a bit boring. I think the problem is that the game is so close to The Legend of Zelda that it is hard to not make the comparison. And that comparison the game is losing because it looks very average. The music also feels like it's just one track that repeats on loop. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay has the same problem as the presentation. Quest for Camelot tries to be Zelda, and it is not. Gameplay-wise, it already starts with the same structure. Getting the sword and the shield and then continue. But it is missing the puzzles, funny characters and creativity. You always have to do some easy task a lot of time, like find all my chickens or kill all the soldiers, but you don't have any map to orientate yourself. The fighting also doesn't feel good. You can just spam attack to win. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is an average game that is too close to Zelda to not make the comparison, which makes the game look worse than it is. Still, I don't see any reason why to play the game today. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review LEGO Racers on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Climax Studios and released 2000 in North America and the PAL regions. This game released on multiple platforms like Windows, PlayStation, the N64 and the version we are reviewing, the Game Boy Color. LEGO Racers is a racing game in the LEGO universe, with LEGO minifigures as drivers and LEGO cars. So the title is fitting. You can create your own racer and car, play in a Grand Prix mode to unlock more parts, or play single races. The presentation of the game is a mixed bag. You start with making your own driver and car. I think that looks fine, it is a very cool feature. But while making the driver works good on the Game Boy Color, the car on the other hand just has 3 parts and wheels. I like that you can customize your car, but there's not much variation possible. The problem with the presentation is during the races. Around half of the screen is filled with a big background picture, depending on the track, and some of the background pictures are really looking bad. In total they don't really move even during curves, and that sucks. The track itself with the little ambient objects is fine, but sadly half of the screen is a pixelated mess. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is the average arcade racer. You start at the last position and with good curves and item usage you get more and more to the front. It works, but it has some problems. The game is steering you a bit to keep you even during curves on the road, making it easy to keep on the road but also making your own steering less impactful. That is especially a problem when you try to get items. You see them too late and your steering does so little it can be hard to get them. The best item is the mushroom replacement, the green block. The attack item can be hard to use and the defend item is impossible to use at the right moment, because you cannot see when something is coming to you from behind. If it hits you, you just stop driving and that's it. You can just see it if it doesn't hit you. The racing tracks are also too similar, especially because of that kind of auto steering. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is an average arcade racer that suffers from a bad presentation. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review GT Advanced Championship Racing, or in Japan known as Advanced GTA on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by MTO and released 2001 everywhere. It is a racing game that is trying to be more on the realistic side, with real cars and parts. The main game mode is a championship mode in which you unlock more cars and tracks. The game is saved by a password system. The game is an early Game Boy Advance game and in the presentation you can clearly see that. They went with a 3D look for the cars, with different sprites for different angles, but especially in the beginning of a curve, the part right before the sprite change, they just cut the sprite in half and that looks quite buggy. The maps look okay, but not special. They have okay background pictures and move around a bit when you're doing a curve, and the streets look okay too. The collisions don't really feel impactful. There's background music during the races, which is nice and often not there for that kind of racing game. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fine. I like that the racing tracks have a good length. Often the lap is around 30 seconds and the races have 3 laps, making a race around 1.5 minutes. That is a good time. The control of the cars feels good. The main thing you do is drift around the curves, but that works fine. A bit over is the accident animation that starts when you get too much out of balance. The game is using a typical arcade racer style of you starting last. But since the game also has a minimap, it looks a bit ridiculous that the other racers start the race with half a lap ahead of you. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is an average racer with nothing that feels outstanding today. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Famicom Mini Die 2 G Super Robot Taisen, or also known as Super Robot Wars 2 on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Nintendo and released 2004 exclusively in Japan. It is part of the Famicom Mini or Classic NES series. This means that the game is an emulated NES game on the Game Boy Advance. The original NES game released 1991. Not many Super Robot Wars 2 GBA games were printed, only around 2000, and there were a possible price when buying Super Robot Wars GC. Super Robot Wars 2 is a tactical RPG in the style of Fire Emblem. You control multiple robots in a turn-based fight. Every robot has their own experience, can level up individually, and have their own attacks. In this review, you see the game with the English patch made by Gideon Zhu. The game looks like a NES game. Because it is an NES game. It is just emulated. So the presentation is for the Game Boy Advance quite weak. The map looks too easy, the robots have just little symbols, and the attack animations also look cheap. The music on the other hand is great. I know it is not really fair judging an NES game by GBA standards, but we count it as a GBA game here, so I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is good. It's a typical tactical RPG with not many surprises. I like tactical RPGs and I think this one is fine, but it is also very average. There's nothing special to make it stand out. It is from 1991, so I think for that time it was good, but during the time of the GBA there were Fire Emblem and the Advance Wars series that do a similar thing just so much better. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think it's an average tactical RPG that can't compete with other games on the platform. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review J-League Fighter Soccer, the king of ace strikers in the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Graphic Research and released 1992 exclusively in Japan. It is a football game and the first ever game made for the J-League, the Japanese football league. This game released before the J-League even started. You can play the different teams of the J-League and do single matches or play the league mode, in which you play against different teams in a row, trying to score enough points to win the league. The presentation of the game is fine. The game decided to make the people that are not on the ball at the moment and not selected by you small. That looks a bit weird in the first moment to have that many people running around, but the screen of the Game Boy is not so big, and I think it's a clever way to make it possible to have multiple players on the screen and still see something. Sadly, there are not only no differences between the players, but also not between the teams. The team you play is looking a little bit different, but the enemy teams all look the same. It can be really hard to see if a player is from your team or from the other team. The menus look easy and the background music is quite good. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay has one big problem that it couldn't solve. The Game Boy has 2 less buttons. To get around that problem, they made a menu with different actions like attack, block or shoot. You can cycle through the menu with the B button and do the action with the A button. The idea is good, but in the practical gameplay it can be hard to cycle through everything until you have found what you need in the situation. For that the time is too little. Additionally, you can just shoot away the goalkeeper. That's weird. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think the game has some creative solutions to get around the limitations of the Game Boy, but it is not much fun to play. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Cars on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Helix and released 2006. It's a racing game that is based on the Disney Pixar movie Cars. In this game you play Lightning McQueen and you do different races to unlock and win the Piston Cup. The presentation of the game comes in 2 parts, the races and the rest. The races look fine.
The game uses an isometric style and not the behind the car style that a lot of racers on the Game Boy use. It works good and the races are looking fine. The cars are a bit pixelated but still not bad looking. Sadly, the courses don't have much variety in the presentation. You have the desert courses that all use the same assets and the piston cup that is looking quite boring. Everything besides the races is looking extremely cheap. The menus are bad looking and the dialogue screen is just two pictures that look badly cutted out, speaking in front of some background. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fine. The racing feels mostly okay. In the beginning it feels a bit weird to go into the curves because the steering is very strong. But after a while you get used to it and it's starting to feel good. You and the enemies are on the course as well as neutral cars. The only special part during driving are the boost and slowdown fields that boost or slow you down. In the story mode, the only available mode, you unlock different colors for McQueen, screenshot of the movies and the different courses to play. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think it's an okay racer, especially for a licensed game, but there's nothing special that makes the game worth playing nowadays. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review Evergirl on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Artificial Mind and Movement and released 2005 exclusively in North America. It is part of the Evergirl brand. That brand was made by Nickelodeon and was a tween girl brand with all kind of things like dolls, clothes and apparently video games. The brand doesn't exist anymore. In the game you play a young girl living in the Ever House, together with a lot of other young girls. Maybe that's an orphanage because I don't recall that you have parents. I'm not really sure, but I won't think too much about it. In the town is an old theater that somehow belongs to your family and your aunt is giving you the task to take care of it. During multiple levels you renovate the theater and make a cafe out of it. The game is looking nice. The sprites are well made and the animations of them look good. The town is a bit simple with just a 2D screen that can scroll left and right, but the pixel art in the town is good looking with vibrant colors. The main feature of the game is the customization. You can change the colors of your hair and clothes, and in the cafe you can change the furniture, wallpaper and more. That is not changing anything gameplay wise, but is a nice feature. The pause menu is in the style of a phone. The music is okay, but not very memorable. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand is a bit boring. Normally the task is just to talk to people or playing some, mostly not very good, minigames. The gameplay loop is using an episode structure. You do some tasks and then the next episode starts and reset a new level. Every level your cafe is expanding a bit more and is getting nicer. So the game is very linear with the main task being boring. Making the cafe good is better and I like the progression there. The ability to change the furniture around and customize it is nice. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. I was surprised by the game and thought it would be way worse. The renovating the cafe goal of the game is fun, but the tasks to get there are too simple and boring. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Tsuriyuki Kid on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Kotobuki Systems and released 1997 exclusively in Japan. It is a puzzler game in which you play Kid Clown and you need to find 8 keys to open the locked door and get to the next level. The only problem is that you are a very unpopular clown. All the other clowns hate you and want to kill you. In total it is a very clown heavy game. This game actually got remade as Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle 3 on the Game Boy Color with Looney Tunes characters instead of clowns. The presentation of the game is simple. The sprites look fine, besides the fact that they are clowns, but they don't have any outstanding features to them. The animations are also very easy. The levels are just some simple and often repeating backgrounds, but my main issue with the presentation is that the keys are all locked behind doors and you need to go through the doors to get them, always playing an animation for the screen transition, which can be quite annoying and is often unnecessary. The music is fine. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. I think the gameplay works really well. The levels can get quite tricky, because the enemies that try to kill you are very annoying and you need to get the keys in the right order to always be able to escape them. For moving around the levels there are different things, like warp fields, pipes and vines. That is fun. The enemy can, depending on the type, use their movement options too and follow you, making it hard to dodge them, but in a good way. The game is saved by a password system, which is always a bit annoying, but not the biggest flaw for a Game Boy game. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It's a great puzzler and the levels have a good length to play the game on the go. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today review Beat'em Bakugaiden V Final Megatune on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Media Factory and released 2000 exclusively in Japan. It is a RPG in the Bomberman universe in which different Bombermen are pilots of mechs and shoot their way through different areas. You play a team of Bombermen using different mechs. The game uses an interesting fighting system, with different parts that all have their own HP and an overarching energy bar that is used for your own attacks but also can get reduced by the enemy. If multiple parts break or the energy bar reaches zero, the battle is over. The game is looking good. It starts with a little cutscene, which are mostly images scrolling from left to right, but with cool background music. In-game the fights look fine. The most attacks are just easy energy shootings, but still. The fight is even happening in some environment. Compared to the fighting scenes of Pokémon for example, it looks way more detailed. Sadly, there's no overworld in the game. You navigate through menus and the dialogues are also very easy looking. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is good too. The main thing you do gameplay wise is fighting. You choose what attack you want to do, what part of the enemy you want to hit, and what part of yourself you want to protect with an energy shield. It works good and is fun, but also very repetitive. The idea with the different parts is good, but also not really changing the game compared to just 1 HP bar. Still, the fighting is a lot of fun. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Only if you speak Japanese. The game is incredibly text heavy, and during the gameplay it was exhausting to always translate the on-screen text. The game is not worth doing that, but I think if you can speak Japanese or if an English patch releases, I would take a look at the game. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today review Logical on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Conspiracy Entertainment and released 1999 in North America and the PAL regions. It is a puzzler game and proves that just calling your game logical is not making it a logical game. I needed a moment to understand what is going on. I thought, but even after a moment I had no idea and watched a YouTube clip to see the marbles can change from one thing to the other. After I figured out how to do that, I understood it, I thought. But no. I needed to check the manual too, to understand what is the goal in the levels. You need to collect 4 times the same marble in every container at least once to pass the level. The 4 marbles explode in the container and it's looking slightly different. There's a little cross in the middle. If every container has that cross, the level is passed. The presentation of the game is on the very simple side, and that to a degree that is actively hurting the gameplay. They could have changed the color of the containers a bit to show a bit more clearly which containers are done. I needed a long time to even see the differences, because everything looks so bad anyway. For a long time I didn't think that little cross means anything. The rest of the UI looks okay and there is background music. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is okay. It is an okay puzzler once you understand it, but also not more. The early levels are not complicated in any way. It is just a drag to get the balls where they need to be, but not because the thinking required is too complicated, but because the ball traveling process is slow. Additionally, the game has 0 tutorials whatsoever. Not even a little text box explaining what to do. Without the manual, you are just screwed. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. You need a moment to find out what to do, and when you do, you only find a very average puzzler. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today review Kawa no Shitsuri 3 and 4 on the Game Boy Advance. This is a collection of the 2 games Kawa no Shitsuri 3 and 4, in the West known as Legend of the River King 1 and 2. The game collection was developed by Toei and released 2006 in Japan. The games in the collection are from 1997 and 1999. In this review I don't want to focus too much on Legend of the River King 1 and 2 because these games will get their own video. I will focus on the collection and what improvements that collection brings. The games are looking better than the original versions on the Game Boy Color, but are not complete remakes. The sprites and colors got improved, but the aspect ratio and connected with that the camera size stayed completely the same. So it is really more like a sprite swap to better sprites and nothing more. Because of that you have some borders on the game screen to keep the 1:1 ratio of the Game Boy Color. The music also got improved. I would say in total it looks a bit like a below average GBA SNES game, but it is an improvement to the original. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is, as far as I can say, exactly Legend of the River King 1 and 2. I don't want to say more about the gameplay because I will review that in the videos of the original games. Since the gameplay is not changed, which is also not needed for a collection, I give the gameplay a 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Only if you speak Japanese. This collection is looking better than the original versions for the Game Boy Color, but it is in Japanese, while the originals also got released in English. If you can't speak Japanese, go ahead and play that better looking version, but if not, you have to stick with the originals. Don't worry, besides a bit more detailed sprites, you won't miss anything. I give the game collection overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Pro Kun Pocket 3 on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Diamond Head and released 2001 exclusively in Japan. It is a third installment of the popular Pro Kun Pocket series. Story-wise, the game is a continuation of the first two games. You are playing a baseball player that renews a baseball club of a formerly unpopular school and rose to fame. Sadly, after this, you had to marry someone against your will and then you died, for some reason. But you get revived 3 years later as an android to come back and play some more baseball. Lucky you. The game offers a story mode in which you try to get famous again with your new android self and an exhibition mode in which you can play some baseball. The game is looking great. I really like the style they went with. Everything is colorful and cartoony. The whole game is not taking itself too serious, which should be clear already from the story. The dialogues are done in a cute way with a lot of physical expressions and sound effects. Sadly, there is no overworld. The game is played on the baseball field or in menus, but the way the menus are made is good. There are little animations for different jobs you can take to earn some money or for different locations you can visit. The presentation in-game is done well too. The field is easy looking, but doing the job good. The pitcher and the batter are using very big sprites, and after the ball is hit, it changes to a nice overview look. The backup music is very good and fitting to the style. I give the presentation 4.5 out of 5 points. The game is a lot more RPG than I thought. In the story mode you can do different jobs to earn some money while maintaining your energy. The money you can use to buy upgrades to be a better player. Since you're an android anyway, the buyable upgrades make sense. The gameplay out of the baseball games is easy, but because of the good presentation and humor it is still fun. The gameplay in the baseball games is working good too. As a batter you can hit the ball with the right timing, as a pitcher you can decide what kind of throw you want to do. After the ball is hit you can try catching it. It is nothing special but working good. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, but the game is Japanese and very dialogue heavy. If you cannot speak Japanese and you don't want to translate everything you see on screen, it might get a bit difficult. Sadly, there's no English patch available. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Today we review Doraemon no Crisp Boy on the Game Boy Color. This is actually the second Doraemon game on the Game Boy Color that we review. The first one was not very good. So let's see if this one is better. Spoiler, it is not. The game was developed by Shogakukan and released 2000 exclusively in Japan. It is a quiz game in which you play Doraemon against 5 different kids in 3 different modes. The game looks, all in all, bad. The menu screens look like someone drew them with paint, and the presentation inside of the quiz minigames is not much better than the bare minimum. I like that they put a bit of effort into the opponent selection with the folder, but that is the peak of the efforts that they put into the presentation at all. You can see Doraemon and the opponent inside of the quiz minigame, so I guess it could have been worse. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is a bit hard for me to judge. The game is made for children that are able to speak Japanese. So for me it was difficult to translate the question and press the buzzer earlier than my computer enemy. I can also not judge if the question and the time the opponent needs to buzzer is appropriate for children. What I can say is that all 3 different modes are played very similar, and every opponent has the same 3 modes. So the opponents are just different difficulties depending on the subject of the question. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I don't recommend that you play a Japanese children quiz game. No matter who you are, I am sure there are better games for you. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Rugrats Go Wild on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Megaland Interactive and released 2003 in North America and the PAL regions. The game follows the storyline of the third Rugrats movie, Rugrats Go Wild, and is a crossover between the Rugrats and the Wild Thornberrys. I have never watched the movie and I don't have much nostalgia towards Rugrats or the Wild Thornberrys. Rugrats Go Wild is basically a big fetch quest with some minigames here and there like throwing balls on monkeys or driving the van of the Wild Thornberrys. The game is saved by a password system, which is fitting to the rest of the game. The game looks extremely bad. The sprites of the characters look like they're pasted into some generic background and it's all not really fitting together. It looks like a bad ROM hack or a bootleg of a game. The perspective of the background and the characters is not fitting at all. The presentation of the minigames is not making it better. Everything just looks like a cash grab game. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. Okay, so no one put effort into the presentation, but maybe the gameplay is good? No. The gameplay sucks as much as the presentation. The main gameplay loop is running around a level and finding characters that want you to find certain items in the level. But nothing ever happens in the levels, so you just run around until you find the items. The items also just spawn after you got the task to find them. So whenever you need to find new items, you also need to run everywhere where you have been before. Let's get to the minigames. They suck too. The main minigame is running around trees and throw balls on enemies and after that defeat a boss. The controls are feeling weird and it is not fun. The car minigame I didn't even understand because there was no indication of a goal of that minigame. I had no idea what I should even do. Drive in the directions of the arrows I guess, but it looped and never stopped. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. 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 It has literally no redeeming factors. It is at the same time boring and annoying to play and it looks bad. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Today we review International Track and Field, also known as Hyper Olympic Track and Field GB on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Konami and released 1999 in Japan and the PAL regions and 2000 in North America. You play a young man in the final year of college that is trying to get the best results possible in track and field. For that you plan your schedule to improve your stats and do different minigames for the different events. The game is looking great, everything has nice animations and the game is very polished. There are little screens for the different trainings and stuff like the animations of the mood indicator on top of the screen and the animated faces during the conversations is really a lot of extra effort that impressed me. The different events themselves are rather easy looking, but not bad. The different characters have different sprites, mainly different skin colors, and the arena is looking fine. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is quite good too. There are different modes. The Hyper mode, in which you choose a character and you compete in multiple events against a computer. Your Versus mode against a different human player, and a Story mode in which you create your own character, let him train and get higher stats. From time to time you get dialogues with other characters and you compete. The different minigames are not all played so different. The running minigames, for example, are mainly played by button mashing, and the throwing and jumping minigames are very similar to each other too. That makes the game a bit too repetitive, but it is fun and addicting to improve your own stats and get massively overpowered. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. I admit that the game can get a bit repetitive after a while, but it is a fun game and worth checking out. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Tetris DX on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Nintendo and released 1998 in Japan and North America and 1999 in the PAL regions. It is like the cover already says, original Tetris, but in colors. The game is looking fine. They use nice colors and the in-game scene has some animated background, which is a bit unnecessary but not bad. The background music is fine and there are 3 different tracks to choose from. The music is also changing based on how high your blocks already are. The presentation is good, but there's also nothing innovative about it. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The game is the original Tetris, in colors. So the gameplay is, like expected, original Tetris. There are a few different modes. Marathon, in which you try to survive as long as possible. Ultimate, in which you try to get the most points in 3 minutes. 40 lines, in which you try to clear 40 lines as quickly as possible. And a versus mode against a computer. While that sounds like a lot of different modes, they all play exactly like original Tetris, and only the Marathon mode is really motivating long term. Not because the gameplay is bad, but because the gameplay is not changed from the original, I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is Tetris, but with colors. It is good, but I think Magical Tetris Challenge on the Game Boy Color is more interesting. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Attack of the Killer Tomatoes on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Equilibrium and released 1992 in North America and the PAL regions and 1993 in Japan. You're playing Wilbur Finlander and you try to save Sam Zucchini from the evil killer tomatoes. The game is a platformer based on the animated series Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. The game looks not good, but also not horrible. The foreground sprites look okay and the tomatoes have little idle animations. The player character has multiple different attacks based on the directional input while attacking, and the background is mostly not existing. The start cutscene with the moderator is okay, and that there is a start cutscene at all is already better than a lot of other Game Boy games. The main problem with the presentation that also heavily affects the gameplay is the serious slowdown that happens when a little bit more is going on in the game and makes it nearly unplayable. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. While the slowdown is the biggest problem of the gameplay, it is not the only one. The game is a very standard platformer. The ability to do different attacks to different heights is a bit of an extra feature compared to other Game Boy platformers, but that is about the only special thing the game has to offer. Oh wait, you can also drive on a skateboard, which seemed always pointless. The enemies often hide as objects and have some animation until they're fully there. When you attack them during the animation, you won't deal damage to them and they will do damage to you afterwards. That can be a bit annoying. Always keep a bit distance to new spawning killer tomatoes. The jump and all the movement doesn't really feel good. Additionally, you need to find an item in the level to be able to finish it, but there's no indication for that whatsoever. So yeah, it got a lot of problems. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a bad platformer that suffers some slowdowns during the gameplay. I'm sorry Sam Zucchini, but I will let the killer tomatoes win. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Pro Kun Pocket 7 on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Diamond Head and released 2004 exclusively in Japan. It is actually the second Pro Kun game that we review on this channel. First we reviewed Pro Kun 3 and now Pro Kun 7. The fortune wheel that decides the game does not care about order at all. In this game we are a player on a high school baseball team and it is not running well. If there would only be a hero that can save us. But wait, what is that? A hero that saves us! Suddenly there are 2. No, 3. Something weird is going on here. The game is again looking great. The style is very familiar to Pro Kun Pocket 3. Actually, it is so close to Pro Kun Pocket 3 that I don't have much different things to say, so I just say the same stuff again. The dialogues are done in a cute way with a lot of physical expressions and sound effects. There's no overworld, the game is played on the baseball field or in menus. The menus look a bit cleaner than in the third game and are in total very good looking. In-game the game looks very similar too, but a bit better. The sprites are a bit more detailed and the stadium too. The game is looking a bit too much like the earlier one. I am a bit disappointed in that. Still a great looking game, so I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is again an RPG life simulation kind of game, with a lot of baseball in it. Unlike the third game which we play on Android, here we seem to just play a normal high school kid. What a downgrade. Instead of earning money in different jobs to buy upgrades for our Android self, we actually train to get better in baseball. It is a shame, but that's life. Sometimes you're not a cool Android and just a normal high school kid. The main game principle stays the same. Train to get better stats, play baseball and win. Out of the games you need to manage your mood. So don't train too much. The gameplay in the baseball games stayed exactly the same. Maybe a bit cleaner. You can hit the ball with the right timing or decide what kind of throw you want to do. If the opponent hits the ball, you need to catch it and pass it. All working very good. That gives the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, but the game is just like the third game, very text heavy and there's no English patch. I like the story of the third one a bit more, it leaned even more into the crazy, but this one is good too. It gives the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Today we review Bionic Battler, on Japan known as Versus Battler on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Copia System and released 1990 in North America and 1992 in Japan. It is a PvP dungeon crawler. You and 3 to 7 opponents run around the labyrinth in mechs, trying to defeat each other with punches and rockets, so the Japanese name Versus Battler is quite fitting. The game cuts the screen in half, it uses the top half for first person and the bottom half for a top down view so that you can orientate yourself in the level. That works for orientation well, but the top screen is kind of useless because you need only the bottom screen all the time. The only thing that you can see on the top screen that you cannot see on the bottom screen are upgrades that lay on the floor. The sprites are really easy and repeating almost instantly. I think there's just one kind of wall, for example, no matter the level. The sprites for the max look good and there are different music tracks you can choose from. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. In the beginning it is not directly clear how to play the game, but after a moment I understood it. You can punch or charge or rocket to shoot at the opponents. The opponents have the same moves. The thing that confused me in the beginning is that the game is not over when you destroy an opponent mech, because there are multiple opponents in the level. I guess that they also fight against each other, but it is a bit hard to see, so I'm not sure. The gameplay works fine, it was fun, but I think the game is made with a focus on multiplayer. So the single player doesn't have much to offer. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It was actually fun for around 10 minutes, but without multiplayer the game is not holding up, and I think for multiplayer there would be a lot of better games too. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today review Duel Master Senpai Legends on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Mystic Software and released 2004 in North America and the PAL regions. It is actually the second Duel Masters game that we review. The first one was a sequel of this game, Duel Masters Shadow of the Code. This game is again based on the manga Duel Masters and made together with Wizards of the Coast, the company responsible for Magic the Gathering. You play a teenager that has birthday and gets some cards of his friends, and a great card from his grandpa, who was a strong duelist. Important to say that when giving the gift, I'm sure the protagonist never heard of that before. But suddenly, the cards get stolen and you go and try to get it back. The presentation of the game is not so good. Let's start with the overworld. The overworld looks super bad. The outside is fine-ish, but once you go into buildings, you see the same 3 to 4 3D assets shown in 2D in the same rooms. It doesn't really fit in the style. It looks very cheap. Also cheap looking is the running animation of the protagonist and the edgy idle stance. In the card battle, the game looks okay with the monsters on the field, but all the UI is so full with stuff. And I don't mean the information, but the UI elements itself has some background that just looks distracting and pixelated. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The card game itself is fine. It is clearly inspired by Magic the Gathering, but with some changes to make it a bit more easy. The problem is, at least in this digital version, it is very slow. Even if you put in the option that the AI and text speed is fast, it is taking quite some time. More than what I enjoy spending on one match. At the same time, it is tedious to always look at the details of the cards to know exactly what they do. They have little icons to explain the basic abilities, which is already good, but still. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is too slow and annoying to play. If you're a fan of the manga or know the cards and rules already, you might have an easier time, but for the rest it is not worth the amount of work it needs. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Kiseki Series 2 Osareniki on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Koinu-Chan and released 2001 exclusively in Japan. It is a life simulation game in which you play a high school girl. It is a visual novel kind of game. There is not much gameplay out of dialogues. It is actually the second game of the Kiseki series that we review. The first one was the sequel, Kiseki Series 3, in which you play a hamster. I liked hamster more than high school girl. The game looks a bit boring. The focus is clearly on the protagonist that you play. You can look at yourself in the mirror, apply makeup and change your outfit. I'm always a bit scared of young girls and the ability to change clothes in old games. The presentation of the main character is okay, but not very special. The overworld is very average and the dialogues, which are the main part of the gameplay, are a bit too boring. The person you talk to does nothing and you can see your own face in the corner just blinking. For a dialogue heavy game, that is not enough. The background music is okay. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. There's not much gameplay to judge. You go to school and there are 2 different locations and then you talk with people. It is a lot of dialogue. You can earn some money and buy new outfits and that is about it. So yeah, not so much to say about the gameplay. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I don't know much about you watching the review, but I'm sure you're not the target audience for this game. Nobody is. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points.